And you'll pick and choose what you would like to include in your sampler. So it doesn't have to be every single stitch that I teach. It does not have to be on your sampler. You just include the ones you like. Mine will have everything on it because I'm trying to demonstrate them to you. If you move the camera down a little, you'll see more of me. Okay, that's more of me. Now it's more of the table. Yeah, that's better. You can sit. She's holding it too.
How's that?
Now you say headshot and light. Better?
How's that?
That's much better.
It's barely.
Nothing like watching yourself.
You could put that other one behind it, maybe.
Yeah. And they're two different heights. There we go.
Sorry, technology. And I'm basically going over the stuff that you've got the handout for, so you can look at it again. It's also to help me remember, even though I've done it several times. We'll explore color, layout, and fibers in the designing of your sampler. In the creative process of the sampler, you'll grow as a stitcher in skill level and your confidence of your stitching ability, and hopefully have fun and form some special stitching friendships. That, to me, has been the best part of doing the group. It's because you're in here, you're kind of all in the same boat when you're working on things, whether you've stitched a lot of linen and know a lot of stitches, it doesn't matter. We're all kind of in the same boat when we start here. This, and I'll reiterate this several times, this is your sampler. It is not my sampler. It's not anybody else's sampler in the room. When we cover certain stitch or suggested band, you don't have to use it. You can change things in it. My only rule for stitching is the thread does have to go through the eye of the needle. It's really hard to poke it through the fabric.
Are we
with
allowed
thread.
to speak amongst ourselves for, like, do you like this kind of thing?
Yeah.
After
I leave the room.
Exactly.
After I leave the room. Well, I'm going to encourage you to personalize your sampler as much as possible. Romeo certainly personalizes mine all the time. You do want to choose your theme before the class begins. I highly recommend this, otherwise you get behind. And, you know, if you don't have that theme to start with, you can't pull ideas, you can't decide on your color, theme. You do kind of want to know. I have tons of ideas for themes, even more that's on the sheet. But I've given you a few. Angels, Christmas, hearts, family. Somebody did pigs once. You can choose a designer like Lizzie Kate, Cricket Collection, and incorporate different things from them in your sampler. Easter, so there's various different types of themes you can use. One of the things you don't want to do is pick a designer like Just Nan. She's already a sampler person. I'm not sure how you're going to incorporate that and make it into a sampler by doing several in the same design. So when you're thinking themes, you're thinking about your motifs, your picture designs on your piece. You can sit down with your stash that you've got at home. This is a good way to use up your stash. All those things that you've bought and maybe haven't used yet, and sort them into, instead of by designer, maybe sort them into subject matter. See what you have the largest pile of. Do you have a huge pile of winter things or snowmen? Do you have a huge pile of seascape? That's another good way. Yeah, you can also pick, you know, I want to do something for my living room. Well, you need to go a little bit farther than that, unless you're going to do couches and things on your piece. Once you get those, historically a lot of samplers have motifs or spots in them. Those are what I'm talking about your ideas for. And you might include some of those types of things, like looking at old samplers. It doesn't have to be the way I do my samplers, okay? And you've seen some that we had hanging out front. Everybody's looks different. You will need a color scheme, and we'll talk about that on your first class state on how to pick your colors for it, the variety of textures you want to use in it as well. You can, even if you look at your stash, you can expand on that and go an entirely different way with something you've never done before. This is a good way to do that too. And remember, it's your sampler. You're going to have to enjoy working on it. I'm not going to be stitching on your sampler. I'm not. They can be as big as or as small as you want them to be. They have a tendency to grow once you start working on them. You start finding more and more things that you can put in them. You're only going to be limited by the size of the piece of your pattern. You're going to get a half yard of fabric, and this is the long half, 18 by 55. We do cut off about a 14-inch length, about an eighth of a yard cut, 14 by 18, so that because you can't really frame longer than that and not get into very expensive framing. So your design area in terms of, your piece of fabric is going to be about 18 by 42. And that looks like this.
It does not come pre-basted.
It does not come pre-basted. No. It is a big piece of blank fabric. And then you'll also get the other cut off of it is this, which you can run this way. You can also do your sampler the long way, but you're going to get into a scroll rod or something cost-wise to do it the long way. I've seen people do it. It's okay.
Do they make scroll rods that long?
I think it's the biggest scroll rod that I can find.
For that way?
Yeah.
I've seen it, but I never noticed
sure.
if they were, yeah.
We might get into a quilt PVC pipe thing for that. My best suggestion is especially for newbies, is a neutral colored fabric, a white, an ivory, a cream. You can do it on a natural. You can do color, but it's a little bit harder to work with in terms of ideas when you have a colored background. Now, that's not to say that I haven't had a lot of people do colored backgrounds and do them very well, so that's okay too. But those are my best suggestions. You do need to use linen versus using a blend. First of all, in terms of weight in the long term, they'll hang better. The Jobelin, the Luganas are a heavier fabric, and you think about that and having it hang up in that much fabric, it's going to start pulling on it after a while. And most of the times, and I don't do it often enough, you take them down and you rest them for a few months by laying them flat. That'll help keep gravity from taking hold. Especially it depends on how many beads and stuff you put on it too, because that also adds to the weight. And being the bead queen, I tend to have a lot of beads on mine. Bling is a wonderful thing. The largest you're framing them when you base it out is going to be about 12 by 36 inches. So you've got 3 inches all the way around. You can make that area smaller and have a wider extra fabric around it. You do not have to go all the way down to 36 inches. I'd say leave it on there until you're done. Mm-hmm. Don't cut it off and say, okay, I only want this, and then find a bunch more teeth and you're stuck. So you want to leave it, the full length of the 12 by 42 until you're done with what you want to do. Sorry, I lost my place. Your largest stitch area, if you're doing 28 count, the stitch area is going to be approximately 168 by 504 stitches. You can make it a little smaller, make it 160 by 500. That's a huge amount of space. You do want your count to be an even number. In other words, you don't want it to be like 167. Because there are a lot of stitches that we do that are even numbers in the thread. And if you have an odd number of stitches across, you're going to find you're doing a lot of partial stitches on the end. which happened to me. That's why I make the suggestion. And if it's a multiple of 4, it's even better, because a lot of the stitches we do are 4 threads high and 4 threads wide. They can be altered, of course. Oh, let's see. I went through that part about the fabric. We will have an outline for each class to hand you. I say we because Emily does a lot of the help with it. Highlight certain bands from out of the reference books that you'll be getting, and have some ideas and suggestions as to some of the possibilities in the book of how the designer used it in those books. I also like to tell you what kind of threads I think work best for those stitches, and sometimes color, whether it's a single or monochromatic color, or whether it looks really good with a hand-dyed color. These are all just my thoughts on it. Again, it's your sampler, so you can play with it. Also in the outline, we'll have a listing of books for the next month's class, and that's important because if you look through your stash and you have that book, you need to let me know so I don't order it, and you'll get a credit for the book towards the end of the class. Okay. So if you don't need the books, you have to tell us, or you get it. And you don't need any more duplicates of things anymore. I do run fairly loose structure in my class meetings. That's just the way I teach. Generally, to start the session, I teach the different stitches, and then we go into looking at each other's samplers, sort of a show and tell. Sometimes I'll talk about an historical aspect. Sometimes I will talk about the different fibers and the beads and the bling and other things. Or if I see something, or we have a trunk show, like we do right now. We have 3 trunk shows in the store right now. To go out and look at those, because they might have something on there that you want to use in your piece. You will be practicing your stitches on a doodle cloth. Now you can either use the piece that you cut off of your fabric, or you can bring in a smaller piece and work on that. This could be a really cool doodle cloth piece, or you could use it as a small sampler design as well. So that's what's nice about getting that extra piece. A lot of people use them as their doodle cloth. If you do, my suggestion would be to do, instead of just rows of stitches, hide the thumb, to do like a square, so you get sampler motifs on it. Okay? It kind of looks better. The other thing I suggest on your doodle cloth is that you keep a record of what stitch is that month. And I like using like a little notebook, and I've got some of the Stitch Happy ones in stock, but any kind of little notebook. I had somebody, was it last time, who did them in a different color every month, so she could put the color down and what stitch and all of that. You will also be able to put that on the piece of the handout that I give you too. So you don't need a separate notebook, but it's kind of nice to have it. There won't be much time to actually stitch on your piece in class. Every once in a while we have some time left at the end, but generally not. But I do like you to bring them to class with you, because we do show and tell, even if you haven't stitched on it. But you'll get points if you do. I'm gonna do a whole new spreadsheet this year for you guys. There'll be class attendance, and whether you stitched on your sampler in between or not, and a whole bunch of other little things. If you talked in class,
Do we get bonus points?
if you talked,
No,
we're talking Frank bonus points.
Yes, thank you.
She wants Frank Violet to do something for her. Trying to get me to get Frank
I've
points.
been trading Frank points.
I can't hear her anymore. When the year of stitching is finished, I'm going to give everybody a couple months off again, like I did this time. We're finishing. And for the ta-da party. We didn't do a ta-da party. We did put up the stuff, but nobody came to the ta-da party.
Oh.
I was kind of bummed. Well, 'cause
Lynn came to the
Lynn
trip.
came.
Yeah.
Lynn came.
She gets extra points.
There you go.
Yeah, she starts out with extra points. How about that? When you sign up to participate, this is what everybody wants to know anyway. You'll pay for the last month of the class, which is 25 classes are $25. So you pay for the last class. You also, for your fabric, once you decide what your fabric is going to be, that payment will go in. And then there's a $10 fee to cover your notebook and the supplies that I hand out each month. So the time you register, you're paying approximately, and I think linen has gone up in price since I wrote this, it's around $78 now, depending on the cost of the linen fabric. If you're using a hand-dyed, of course, it's going to go up in price.
If you're doing remedial, then you already got it.
Yeah, well, yeah.
You're trying to work
Each class session is $25. That's covering I usually give you 2 leaflets, each from different designers each time. So that's just basically covering the cost of the book. Yeah, if you're continuing on from another sampler club, which several of you are, you're not paying for that cost of linen again.
That's not new to you.
Yeah. As I said before, each month we'll give you a list of what reference books we'll be using during the next class session. And then you need to check and see if you have any of them and let us know by the deadline. Usually I have the deadline that's the next Saturday. So you have a week to go home and look through your stash or your notebook if you have one of all what is in your stash. So just let me know. The credit that I talked about, you'll still pay $25 for each month, but at the end, if you have those books, they'll be credited and you'll get a gift certificate for that, okay? The only thing it doesn't go to, we don't have a framer anymore here, so it wouldn't go to framing, but it can be used on anything in the store. It's up to you to select your color scheme. I'm happy to help. Emily is happy to help. Before, cross my heart, before grad school, way back when, sometime in the early 80s, I was an art teacher, so I know a little bit about color and how to do it. Basically, one of the things I'll talk about also in the first session more on color is you need a dominant color. You need a secondary color, which is a color next to it on the color wheel. Remember all those color wheels we did back in 6th grade? The red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet, etc. all the way around. That's what I'm talking about. One to either side. Say I picked red, and a red violet and a red orange would be on either side. And then something opposite on the color wheel, which is the green. You'll see that a lot with the holiday colors. Red and green are opposite. Blue and orange are opposite, your Halloween colors. And then yellow and violet, which they tone it down for Easter. That's how they pull out of some of those things. You can play with this. You can do a few more colors in there that are close to each other in the color wheel in particular. If you look at the ones behind me on my violet sampler, you see it's predominantly purple in my rose, but I also have some greens and there's a little bit of yellow in there. And then I have what I call white space, and we'll talk more about that in the first session too. Again, this is my green phase, so the other one's got green, still a little bit of pink though in it, which would be opposite on the color wheel. There are some themes that lend itself to far more colors. I did one that was all Mosey and me designs, very whimsical, and I think I have every color on there. So, you know, you can break the rules, because there aren't any. She likes that. You don't like rules. I do recommend that you get a 20-inch scroll frame set, whether you get it with stand or without stand. This one's not quite 20. It's a little bit longer than this.
That's probably an 18.
To put your stitching on. she's got one on hers. The reason being, you're going to be working on this for a year.
At least.
Unless you go crazy. I did on one of mine, I got it done in 5 months instead of a year. I don't know why. I just really liked what I was doing and kept going.
Because you could.
Yes. But with these, your fabric's going to be all rolled up, so you're not going to be touching all of it all the time. We also have something for that too. And you'll only see this much at a time to work on. It's not quite as scary when you just see this much at a time, rather than a whole long piece of fabric. So I do really recommend, if you don't have a set of scroll frames and scroll rods, to get one. We do sell them. I don't know if I have any out front at the moment or not. I do have to place an order, and I'll need to know as soon as I can on that. I like mine on a frame. I'm sorry, I forgot it today, but I have one that's basically a tabletop or a laptop stand that I put mine in. I found it very convenient to have it in that, rather than trying to hold it and stitch. And there's several different brands. I tend to get the Case frames, the Case Creations ones in, but there are other companies that you can look at. Let's see. And I'll skip the embellishment part. Included in your materials will be a personalized binder. It looks more or less like a notebook. The 2-inch notebook. I usually buy ones that have the little slip-in thing at the front, because you're going to get, I don't know if you're going to get this one, but you're going to get one that's in black and white. And one of it's a slide in that will say that it's create your own sampler club and what session it is. You get to color it. That will be one of your first homework assignments, is to color your cover for your notebook. And I usually do an end cap one too, but I didn't color mine in this one. Okay, so you get a notebook and it has all sorts of lovely things that are going to go in it. Right now there's nothing in yours, because you'll be collecting things. But I will provide all of the folder file holders, etc., to go in there as well. This has almost become like my Bible for class. My tome that I go to when I'm looking for stitches, I go back to these for other things, because what we'll do is we'll go through, see if I got one in here. And this is what you get when you come to class. You get something that says what we're going to do, the order of things we're going to do them in, whether I stick to that or not. Like I said, I run a loose structure. You'll get on here what band number we're on. This one happens to be number 1. What the stitch is, what book it's out of, and then my suggestions or Emily's suggestions for that stitch. You will also get a little picture, and I know these are hard to see, I'll send this one around the room, on how to create the stitch as it's done on fabric, each step at a time. Now, all the designers have stitch charts in them as well, so it's just 2 different ways of seeing it. So that's what you get each week, too, or each month, I should say. By signing up to participate in this group, you are making a huge commitment. It's a commitment to yourself to work on it. It's a commitment of time. Both Emily and I put a lot of work in each class session. We like you to show up. It's helpful. It makes us feel good. Like we've done something right. We know that there are times when you can't make it. Most of the time, in fact 100% of the time, if you can't come, the materials really aren't available until after the class session. I don't usually have, I'm not that good, I don't have them ready beforehand. Sometimes I'm doing them that morning. It was better when I had a printer that talked to my computer. But it is a big time factor. If you have to miss a meeting, you can schedule another time to come and talk. We'll expose you to lots of different fibers, different stitches, different designers, different techniques. I may do a stitch differently than what the designer did. Often there's one or two that I stitch in a totally different order than most of the designers stitch them. You can, again, it's your project. You can stitch in the way the designer does, or you can try the way I do it. Either one. I won't be hurt if you do it the way the designer does. I've just adapted them. In particular, like the queen stitch, I do it very differently than the way most of the designers do it. I found one designer that does it the way that I do. Barbara of Periwinkle Promises does it the way that I do it. I was so excited when I found that out. We'll talk about many things involving the layout of your sampler, and I'm going to show you a little bit about that today. Your use of color, what I call white areas or neutral areas is probably a better way of putting it. Partial bands, and you can see on mine I do have some partial bands. And embellishments. That one mosey I was talking about, this is my 53 Jabco button.
You should bring that
That's called shop owner's prerogative. Jabco was very happy when I showed it to them.
Oh, I'd like to see that.
I'll bring it in. I'll bring it in the first class. This is some of the basic info. It's hard to conceptualize how it's going to look, or how your sampler is going to look. You do not have to have it all worked out where everything is going to go on the first day. You do not. You don't even have to have it halfway through. You can just start stitching and doing things as you go. That's okay. Some people like to have them all worked out. I kind of do now, but then this is like my 9th or 10th or 12th sampler that I've done, so I'm in a different place. My first sampler, which is not here, it's at home, I did not plan it out. I found things as I went, and I added them in.
What was the theme?
It was the fruit. It was fruit.
Oh.
I have it in my dining area.
Oh, that's too scary.
Sorry. I can tell what everybody's background is. By the way that they do. Yeah, she's an engineer. If you have to have it planned out, I can understand
You're going to
why.
have to let us come see all of those or something. I want to see your...
Well, I am going to try and do that one of these times.
Oh my God. I'd have to clean my...
We won't look at anything else. I'm good at going through houses and stuff all over.
As you can tell, this is a fun group to be in. They'll keep you going. They'll put you on the right track.
It is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And you'll come in and say, I think it looks like crap, and then somebody will say, but look at that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I do that a lot.
Does anybody have any questions? I'm going to go through some other stuff, so...
How do you know, and I know this is, you know, the layout, how do you know it's not going to be off kilter if you don't have it laid out?
There's no right or wrong.
There's no right or wrong. In the two that are behind me, one is way more formal than the other.
Yeah.
One's balanced, same thing on the right side as on the left side, even if they're different pictures, their areas are the same. The other one has things that are, it's a different type of balance. It's not off balance, it's weighted differently, but it's not symmetrical.
Which do you prefer?
Depends on what my subject matter
Well, which one's the formal one then?
That one.
That's the form, okay.
That's me. That's very much me.
Yeah, I'm more symmetrical too.
This one is weighted evenly, but it is not symmetrical.
Right. I'm going to try one of them someday.
Now, the one that I did, and I've got pictures, I'm going to send them around for ideas. The one that I did, that's the Mosey and Me, is definitely not symmetrical. And it's way more whimsical. I do have, these are some of the pictures of ones that have hung in the shop before. That's the Mosey and Me one that's down in this corner. So, and there's pictures on the back. And these will show you some different themes as well. We've got everything from, there's my fruit sampler one that's down in the center. Earth, air, fire, and water. Earth, air, fire, and water are all completed. I just don't have pictures of all of them. Then on the back, someone chose Marjolaine Bastine to do some of her designs. We had some things that were more sort of a Celtic or medieval influence, a Christmas one, a needleworker sampler, a Halloween sampler.
Oh, it was beautiful.
And then these are pictures from, I got this idea from a shop owner, one of my first years at Market, and this was her class that was doing it. So you can look through, and there's different themes on here. Although you can tell that they were all novices, they all have some similarities about them, and that's where they started. There was one that had English teapot, a lot of floral designs. We also had a Southwest one, an autumn, a patriotic, and her second class had just gotten started, sunflowers and crows. There was a Christmas one. And then I know that Emily's got pictures on the website of some of the other ones that we've had hung in the shop. So there's lots of different ideas. Emily did one that she just finished, her egg sampler, which I'll unroll and show you. And you did a penguin sampler,
Which I can't find.
which is missing in her house.
I did, one year I took a piece of 20 count fabric, square, put a Frank Santa in the middle of it, and then just did square spots of stitches.
And that was really cool. We've had Thanksgiving. We've had hearts. Someone did a wedding sampler for themselves, basically. I'm trying to think what else. The pig, that one was really cute. Nautical, by the sea, under the sea. There's all the seasons to choose from. Ohio, I've had 2 Ohio samplers. Very different from each other. I'm trying to think what else. It's hard to remember. One of the ladies did one for each of her children. So she had things about her children in each sampler. She did all 3 of them. They were all about quarter-yard cut fabric. She did all 3 of them in 1 year.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. But, you're working at your own pace. It's your sampler. So those are just some of the ideas. Now there's some of the things. Besides your fabric, I have a variety of little things that you might think about. None of these are absolutely essential. Needles and scissors are essential products that you need for stitching. Needles. It depends on your fabric. If you're using a 28 count fabric, I recommend the size 24 needles. If you're using a 32 count fabric, I recommend size 26 needles. There are 2 types of needles I really like, two makers. I really like Peacemakers. They're one of my favorite needles. Boheen needles are newer company, and I like them too. You might think, if you're going to do any beadwork, think about using the new Boheen beading needles. I really like them as well. They're nice.
What you'll want to do with those, though, is before you stitch with them, you might want to run the tip of them on an emery board because they are sharp.
Yeah. Now, the John James beading needles are not as sharp as these are. What you don't want to do is pierce your threads on your fabric.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's why they use tapestry needles, because they're not as sharp tip.
To just make them a little rougher.
So yeah, just not rougher, but duller.
Really want, and some of them are just pretty. We do have needle threaders of various types, including the new Just Another Button Company ones that have buttons on them. And then we found another new one that I also really like it. And we sold a whole bunch of at the 2EGA events we just did. But there's some needle threaders. Of course, you need to keep your needles in something. And I have the wonderful needle cases from Off the Grid Designs. I really like these. I have enough of them because I can never decide which color to get, that I will write on mine somewhere what size needles I put in them. Like all my size 26 are in one bottle, all my 28s are in another. My beading needles are in another bottle.
And I just gotta do that.
And you're doing a lot of counting. If you haven't used counting pins before, they're wonderful. You can count 10, 20, leave a pin in. Count 10, 20, leave a pin in, especially when you're basting. So we've got different types of counting pins, and Emily makes counting pins. They're hiding somewhere. There they are. So I'll send some of those around.
Are they, the Jabco ones, the 5 or those counting pins or what? You know, the group of 5 that you get?
Yeah,
Yes.
just pins.
Yes, Jabco also makes counting pins, but I'm going to show you them. Of course, you can also need some new pin cushions. Need has nothing to do with it, right? The little birdie's really cute to make up. Jabco just came out with, they've been doing the, these guys, Lily Ladybug's pretty new, but now they're doing them on spools. There's Halloween spools and spool keeps, and then there's Christmas spool keeps. This one happens to be a Frankenstein. They're really easy to put together. You can use glue. You do not have to sew. Glue is good. But, you know, then you have something that you can stick all your counting pins in. It's kind of fun to be able to stick them on top of Frank's head. But there's all sorts of fun little things out there for us. What else do I have here? Oh, scroll rods. I love stitching mittens. This one happens to be open. It's too big for this one. But you can get stitching mittens, and we'll get them in 18 or 20 inch length for you. Yours, they go over your scroll rods. And that will also help keep them clean. Now, yes, we can buy them. You could probably make them. They're just a piece of elastic that runs all the way through the inside part, but it will keep that fabric clean. Anyway, we'll have to order them because I only have 24 inch sizes here today. Oh, if you do any beads, I have to do bead mats in.
They're very helpful.
Yeah. Your beads do not roll away onto the floor, especially the clear ones. I always dump the clear ones. I don't know why. I've got several different scissors. At some point, we are going to do heart hanger this year, and we're going to do drawn thread and pulled work. So you will want a really good pair of scissors that have a very fine, sharp tip on them this year. But there's some new ones in the market. Boheen is now doing scissors, and the Sullivan scissors I like really well too. I also like, I didn't bring back here, Gingers, the new Gingers. Which, what is the name of the new Gingers? Emily scissors will be out, and they are a white background with a rose and a red flower on them.
Oh, that sounds pretty.
And we are taking orders for those as well.
Oh, that sounds
Those
pretty.
are, the Gingers do a designer collection, a new one every year. And they're usually sold out within the first 6 to 9 months. And you don't remake them. I do have fluff organizers. There's various ways to organize your fibers. This is my palette for what I'm going to be working on. Sorry, it's kind of messy right now. My theme this year is chocolate. I'm doing a big chocolate sampler. So my thread palette, which has various different types of threads on it, I've organized it by color this time rather than by thread. You can use rings. You can use, your fibers can go in these and go on your rings if you really want to protect them. We also have some fun, here I'll pass my thread palette around because everybody likes to play with thread. There are new thread palettes on the market. It's kind of hard to see, so I'll try to hold them up near me. This is a local company, PR Promotions. She lives here. She is a customer of ours, a good friend. They're very nice. The holes are very smooth. They all have measurements on here, 3-inch measurements, except for the heart. Some of them have more holes than others. They've also come out with, and you can see it on our site because I borrowed it from Nordencraft's site, they now have thread pellets with an area you can stitch on. They're a little bit thinner. You have to use a fairly thin needle because there's no give in an acrylic hole. But they're really cool. And I've got examples out front. So I'll send these around. I do recommend these because you can have your ring, but like mine, there's all these loose little pieces of thread. Do a number, these are all numbered. You can do those loose pieces on here. And then not have to take them on and off your ring so much.
A little extra tight.
Oh, your scissors? There's one thing I say to you. Some scissors come with like a leather sheath, which is fine. I tend to push mine on too hard and the point comes out the end anyway. But we also have scissor bracelets in the store. And I use the new earrings rather than the lobster claws because you can get them on scissors easier. And then this part goes on the point. The point being, I sat on the point of my scissors once.
Or if you put it in with your stapler,
if you put them in scissors, you could poke a hole in it. You could cut your thread. I do recommend scissor bracelets. Or in the shop there, Carol's Fanny Savers. I will do them on commission. It won't cost you any more, but you tell me what color you want, and I can color coordinate them. The other thing I really like, if there's something on your design, and one of the things I'm doing in Trading Stitches, which is a whole other class, this is highlighter tape. You can put it across something on your design. You can take the tape off and move it to another place. So one of these will last you a long time.
Tested that theory?
Yes. These are great. And they come in different colors.
I haven't bought any because I wondered how good it stuck, or if you could move
So
it.
you put these on, not on fabric?
Not on your fabric, but on where you're
going
working,
your
so you
ground,
can see,
right?
see where you are.
On your ground. Cool.
Or if you want to just mark out a certain area, because that's what you want to put on your piece, you can do that. We have, for actual stitching, these lovely little gadgets that look really dangerous and are. This is a thread controller. They come in various styles. This you wear on your thumb, the opposite thumb that you're working with your needle. And I'll show you how to do this in the first class. It basically helps keep your threads straight and keep them from twisting so that they lay better in the fabric.
So it's kind of an all-in-one learning tool?
Yes.
Just don't push your glasses up.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. If you want to buy 5 or 10, you can have fun at Halloween. Get 10 different ones, that'd be really fun. All right. A lot of people, we all grew up in the arts with fray check. I don't recommend fray check. I do recommend fray stock. It has less chemicals. It looks like you're putting glue on because it's white when it comes out of the bottle, but it dries clear. So if you want to do that on your edges of your fabric, that's fine. If you want to base the edges of your fabric, that's fine too. But if you're going to put something on, I'd recommend the fray stock. If you're going to use, there's a couple of different lotions on the market. I do like the Stitcher's lotion. It does come in unscented as well as scented. If you're going to use something and come to class, please use unscented. I have a couple of customers that have problems with asthma.
And it makes me cry.
I really, the best one, and the only museum certified one on the market is Soie d'Alger. It's a hand cream, and you basically, it comes in a tube. It's more of a cream, and you use very little of it. But it is a little more expensive. If you need to wash your fabric, and you can wash it first before you start, or you can leave it. You will be washing your hands before every class in here. Treasure wash or eucalyptus, really good. Eucalyptus gets out spots on your clothing too, without having to wash your clothing, because you don't have to use water to use it. And down to various different threads, especially Krynex, and your beading thread. This is a wonderful little product called Thread Heaven. It is a waxy product that you can run your threads across, especially Krynex, because they slide through your fabric better.
Yeah.
It lasts forever. I don't know how long I've had mine, 10 years, somewhere around there. And I've used like a quarter of it.
That's assuming that you always know where it is.
Yeah, I
Others of us have
3 of them out in your car.
Yeah.
It doesn't work out there.
And I had someone who had, it got down to about here, and they brought it in, they wanted new ones. And said, well, how's it? Well, it's about half full, but I can't get my finger in there. I said, well, put it in the refrigerator, let it get cool and hard, or in the freezer. Run a needle around the edge, it'll pop out, and you can put it in the top. You can use it till it's gone. The only thing I found is that on one that I hadn't used for quite a while, I got to skim the coating on the top. I took that off, and it was fresh underneath. So, and then down to bags. We have several bag assortments. I've been making these guys. They're zippered project bags, because to carry everything. You do not have to bring your whole notebook each time. I do recommend that you bring it. I will tell you on a month that I'd say, yeah, you're going to need it with you in case we go back to a stitch. But there's some different types of project bags. Emily's got a really big one that she likes to talk about.
I gotta go find it.
Okay, she moved it.
I moved it.
Anyway, I got one sort of like it. We also have some that are breast cancer tote bags that you can put a water bottle in the side that has a little tiny, it's like a coin purse, but you could put the needle tubes and things in it. This is the biggest one? Yeah. These will fit the frames. They have a pocket on the outside you can put stuff in. Emily likes to take one of these kinds and put it down in with her
patterns
and stuff, and then she can put her actual piece on this part. So these are really nice, and they're zippered, and they're pretty strong, and they're handled. Have I forgot? Oh, yeah, I did forget one. 2 things. 3 things. If you haven't seen these, they're for beads. So they have a little well in them.
If I might say, another feature of this is your scroll frame.
Yes, your scroll frame will fit in there.
Yeah.
The only thing you need to know is to open it the right way. The ones we had before had more of a pattern on the front and back. And you can tell it was set up, and more often than not, I'd open it and all the beads would fall out. So you do need to know what's the top and what's the bottom. And Emily's other favorite thing is stitch blades. It's a seam ripper. She wants to pass it around and it'll end up over there. Okay. They're really nice too. You're cutting your thread out, you're not ripping it out. You can't reuse it. But if you have a big area and you're just disgusted with it, that's a good way to get it out.
Yes, I think I need one.
I don't think I've forgotten anything. Do you have any questions? The other thing we started carrying, eyeglass cleaner.
Oh yeah,
Eyeglass cleaner. It even has a screwdriver element in here. You know what else works on? Your screens, for your phones, all of that other stuff. You can clean, yes. Romeo really likes the carrying case. Lots more carrying cases.
very quiet.
I know, it's being very good. And I was going to show you how I've laid mine out for the first class. what you're going to want to do is baste your piece. And I know you're not going to be able to see this on
This is where
camera.
you start thinking about what it looks like at the end.
Yeah.
Boo.
You baste, and I do everybody baste differently than from each other. I do mine so I count 9 stitches go under the 10th. 9 stitches go under the 10th. So I know where every 10 is. I know a lot of people do 5 over, 5 under, 5 over, 5 under. Okay? And you're going to baste all the way around. If you're really smart, and so far I haven't been, because I just thought of it, mark in 3 inches in each corner and just baste to those. Just make sure when you come across that it's an even number. Okay? Then you're going to find your center. Yeah, you have to count it again. And baste down the center. It's important. And I found the center vertically as well, and I basted across here. That's all you have to do for the first class. Okay? What this does is when you're got it all rolled up in that scroll frame, and you roll down to the next part and roll down to the next part, all of a sudden you know you're at the middle. You know how much you have to get done, and whether all the things you found are going to fit in that space or not. Or you'll be ready for your next sampler, which is what happens to a lot of us. What I did though, because I've done this several times, I've basted out my areas. I've counted them for my motif. You do not have to do that.
But you don't know what they are yet.
I do.
You do?
I do.
Okay.
But again,
We won't, but you
this
talked
is
about
actually
me.
my 12th sampler. If I count them all right. Some I've done in class, some not. So, don't go by me. I've done them a lot. All right, I'll pass this around. You can look at it.
So are we basting before we get to class?
I would like you to baste before you get to class.
It's your homework
If
assignment.
you decide on your fabric. First class is September 1st. That is Labor Day weekend. We usually do them for 2 hours from 2 to 4. Even if you can't make it because it is Labor Day weekend, I will be able to do that earlier that week too. Here, the following weekend, I would do it the following weekend, but I will be in Baltimore, Maryland for the trade show, so I won't be able to do it the weekend before. Any other questions? Because I've talked a lot. Want to hand me Emily's? Emily got hers done. Sorry, upside down.
Oh my. Oh, that's
Emily
lovely.
cheated.
But boy, is it pretty!
That is so pretty.
Oh.
I wish I could
What's it say up
remember.
there?
I could have done
Scatter
that.
eggs.
Scatter eggs.
Scatter eggs.
Isn't that
Scatter
pretty?
Are the names right now?
Yes.
Cool.
Oh my.
Emily, we also run a trading stitches group, which is sort of like the old round robins, where you used to stitch something and send it off to somebody else in the great blue yonder to stitch on it, and then went to somebody else. We do it within in-house, so we call it trading stitches here. Well, she had this piece, and she said her theme was going to be eggs. We all did her motifs on here, without knowing she was going to use it for her sampler class. And it wasn't that we were mad that we did them. We were jealous because we hadn't thought of it for ourselves. So, that is Emily.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it turned out really nice. It also has quite a few buttons.
Yeah.
You can feel them.
Uh-huh.
Pretty, pretty, pretty.
Okay, now for the geek speak.
Geek speak.
Geek speak. Let me move you out of
You
your
wanna
spot.
come over here?
Yep. And I'm gonna sit.
Yeah, that's fine.
Mind you. You left the last one.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe I have the right spot, maybe not.
Under that.
You see how much I remember you.
Oops. Make sure the chair is there before you sit down. Good.
Okay, we have got a couple of people that want to do this online. So you can tell from my little paraphernalia over there that I have got various and sundry different methods. We are right now Skyping with Barb. We are live streaming on the Sampler Club website, and I'm recording so that I can edit and we can have her. Yeah, exactly. You know, take out the things where she turns around and coughs and all that fun stuff. So, if you miss a class, or if you get to a point where you're stitching on a stitch and go, how the crap did we do that? They will be available on the Sampler Club website for you to review again. The website is samplerclubonline.com.
That's the same as it was before.
Yes. There is samplerclubonline.com. Right now, there is not much there. There is a link at the top that says Sampler Club. Click on that, and you'll get your little pieces of paper that you have in your hands. It also has different pictures and things that I've plugged in there, and then some other different pictures elsewhere. It also has information about Study Hall. Study Hall is the last Monday of the month here in the shop from 7 until whenever we leave. Sometimes we get frustrated and leave at 9. Sometimes we stick around and stay till 10:30. It just depends. And that's an opportunity to stitch on your sampler. So you bring your sampler, you bring your books, you bring your threads. We'll talk with each other, say, no, that doesn't work. Yes, that does work. We'll stitch on it. It's a great time to get together and stitch. I will need, do you have your list? I'm going to be sending around this. This will have your name on it, your phone, and your email, and if you know what you want for your fabric count and color.
That's fine. If not,
The
don't worry
email
about it.
is very important. What I do is I set you up with a login and password for Sampler Club Online. That way, only people that are taking the class can actually view the materials. I also do an email list to remind you of, hey, Sampler Club's this week, or hey, we've had to cancel because the power's out, or, you know, whatever. Check your computer. Yeah, yeah. So I do send around email lists for that. I also, you'll be put on 2 email lists. You'll be put on the email list for this club. You'll also be put on the study hall email list. And so even if you're not in it next year, you'll still continue to get study hall reminders. So I will pass that around.
There are a couple people who aren't here today who are also going to be taking. So.
And can you hand me? She talked about the little pictures on the thing. We've got new and exciting and improved, hopefully. It's a little bit bigger count, so, and it's a little bit stiffer, so I'm hoping that the stitches will show up a little bit better. And if technology works right, I'm going to be also having a demo video of how to stitch the thread, if it works out right. So that's me. I think that's all we got. I will email you, Barb, the piece of paper that they have. Any questions?
You okay?
I have a question.
Yes.
Do you know what the first 2?
Yes. It should be a pile right there.
Mark was talking too, but we didn't hear him.
No, the sound isn't working for Barb. Your first 2 books are
An alphabet book?
because we haven't done that for a while, and you might need something to tons of alphabets in it.
What is it?
It's the
Alphabets Galore from Leisure Arts.
And the other one is Pocket Sampler Daughter.
From Heart and Hand. Pocket Sampler Daughter.
So we get those in the first one.
Those will be the first class, yes, on September 1st.
And when you were facing it, how did you anchor your thread?
I used a knot away from the edge.
Oh, no!
You can
Yes.
Yeah, that's fine.
You can also just do a couple
And
of stitches.
for basting, instead of using cloth, I use the number 12 pearl cotton or a sewing thread. It doesn't bother the holes as much when you go to take it out at the very end. And you don't have to do it tight. It's a fairly loose stitch. Yeah, see, I just started a knot in the corner.
Oh, I see.
Down.
Okay. But then you also end up with it.
Yeah, I knotted in there too.
Okay.
Those are all going to be cut out when I'm done. All the basting threads will come off at the end.
Okay.
In fact, on this one, because I did my outline for this already, I've already taken the basted
Oh, okay,
thread
that's
out.
what you're doing yesterday. Okay.
Any other questions? I know we can't hear you, Barb. I don't know what's going on, but we'll get it.
Did she hear
Okay.
us?
Color to call.
You have your ring of colors, all the colors?
Mhm.
Do we need all the colors with that?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
That, yeah, having all the
More
having
complicated if you
threads
do it
and all
as you
that
go.
kind of evolves as you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I
Even
knew
your
that,
motifs
that's why I
can
thought-
evolve
okay.
as you go.
And then you get the opportunity to look for your stash.
Right. Yeah, I'll do more at the first group in talking about color and texture and placement and things like that. Okay? Any other questions? All right, well, thank you for coming. Make sure you give your name on. The other thing is, once we find out what your theme is, all of us help you find things for your theme.